Hey everybody, Alan back with another episode of Bass to Basics. This is the second part of my fall transition series. Last video we talked about the hard baits. Now we're going to get into the soft baits that I like to use this time of year. There's 4 rigs I really like using. I'm going to always start out with a Texas rig and look into the terminal tackle box here. So one thing I'm not going to touch base on much, and yes, I use it, but it's swim baits. I do use swim baits, but primarily this time of year, if I'm using a swim bait, I'm going to use an underspin. I think it just works a little better, gives a little more flash. And as I talked about, those fish are wanting erratic. They're wanting crazy kinds of things. They're willing to chase. They're willing to jump on it. So an underspin works great. Now I have, 2, 3, 4, and 5 EWGs in here that I carry for Texas rig. That's an EWG style hook. These here mustads. I love using these things. I get them every month in my monster bass and mystery tackle boxes I buy and all that. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the shaky head, the Dropshot, and the Ned Rig. Those are the 4 I have supreme confidence in that I can go out, and with one of those 4, if I forget my hard baits and I've only got a pack of plastics and one of these rigs, I can catch fish with them. There's a couple different types of baits we're going to talk about. First, let's go to the Ned Rig. It's going to be the easiest one to go through. So I keep a couple different weights of Ned heads in here. This one here is going to be, get it out, I believe an 1/8 of an ounce. I keep them very light, and I do have the weedless. The weed guard is just a mushroom head, and what it does, it sits on the bottom and just lets your bait sit up. As I talked about in the hard bait video, this time of year, shad patterns are great. In hard baits, that's much easier to mimic than it is in soft baits a lot of times. But I just happen to find these at Bass Pro. These are stickos, but it's got a little paddle tail on it. So you stick that on the Ned. It's just going to sit up there, and these little tails are going to kick. You can throw this out there and just dead stick it, and it'll just sit there and just float around in the water. And believe it or not, a fish will key on that because the slightest little vibration they can pick up with their lateral line. They'll see it, they'll come up, investigate it, and they'll eat it. I've had it happen dozens of times. Just throw it out there, dead stick it, let them come to it. That silver and dark gray with the pearl. So shad type pattern. You get a pack of these things, like a big pack of them for 16 pack. I think they're like $5-6. So good deal. But that's a Ned, and anything small you can throw in a Ned. I've even seen people take like a Senko, cut part of it off after they've had a couple fish bite it, and instead of throwing it away, they'll bite the tip of it off and throw it on a Ned and reuse it as a Ned rig. But when the bite's tough, Ned rig is almost like a cheat code. They're going to bite it. I don't know why. I can't explain to you what makes a fish bite that, but I know if I'm seeing fish, I know they're there. They will not bite anything else. I can throw that Ned out there, twitch it a couple times, and just let it sit. They're going to bite it. So it's definitely a confidence bait. The next thing we're going to look at here is the Texas rig. Texas rig, to me, is the most versatile thing you can fish. You can drag it on the bottom and crawl it. You can swim it. You can punch it. You can flip it. You can pitch it. You can jig it. There's nothing you can't do with a Texas rig. Now, I haven't invested in tungsten yet, which I need to do. I know. I need to get with the times. It's 2020. I need to invest in some tungsten, but I've got my bullet weights in here. Everything from, I believe these are 1/4 ounce all the way up to, I think I've got full ounces in there, which I use for punching. And my go-to usually is a 3 or 4 I will use 5 if I'm using a larger bait. I will use 2 if I'm using a smaller bait or I'm in a small pond and Not real sure what might be in there. I'll sometimes go to a 2-aught, go to a smaller bait to start with, but standard EWG. And there's a couple baits I will throw in this. Either a creature style bait this time of year. I will still throw a worm. Like these zooms here. These are the Mag 2s and Tequila Sunrise. Well, let's talk colors for just a second before I get too far into this. Same color patterns apply to any other time of year. The more you can mimic craws, if you don't have shad in your local fishery or bluegills, those color patterns of what they're eating, the better. However, darker water, your blacks, blues, purples, red, you want to create that silhouette. You want to have them, give them something that they can't see it, but they can see that silhouette a little bit, and it just looks different. Calls them to investigate. Clear water, watermelon, red flake, green pumpkin, things of that nature. You know, the tried and true, they work. But this Tequila Sunrise, I can fish this in a lot of different colors, and it just works. So it's just your little standard Mag 2 worm. What you do is, for a Texas rig, you're gonna go into the worm, down to the, I go about, not all the way usually, about maybe 1/4 of an inch, come through, bring it up, twist it. You want to, I always like it to cover the tip of the hook, the eyelet, so you want it to be there. You're going to line it up with where it's going to come through at. I put my finger right there. I know where the hook goes through, and then you've got a straight Texas rig. And then you can Texpose it to where you got this on there. Texpose means you just lift it up, put that tip right on there, and it causes it to be weedless. So, but this, you know, I can throw this worm on there. I can jig it around, get all kinds of crazy action. Or if I see that they're, you know, hanging out on the bottom a little bit, it's maybe a little hotter still during the day, it's still hot during the day, I can crawl this on the bottom, and this tail's going to kick up all kinds of silt, all the commotion. And I've caught tons of fish this year just dragging a worm across the bottom. What I will normally use, though, there's a couple I want to touch base with in the Texas rig other than the worm. One is going to be a Craw. These are the Guggen Kraken Craws. This is black and blue. These things are amazing. I caught my first night fish of the year on one of these, actually just dragging it along. They have these fatter little lips right here on their appendages. It disperses a lot more water, creates a lot more vibration. These right here, as far as Guggens are concerned, these are the most reliable soft plastics I've found from them. I can catch usually at least 3 to 4 fish before they start getting too torn up, unless I just get one that hammers it and just annihilates it. But the cool thing about that is they get torn up. You got a good trailer too, and they do make great trailers. So you always want to have some crawl style baits, especially if you're going to do a little crawling. Early in the mornings, if I go out and I'm throwing a plastic, I usually crawl it on the bottom, try to get them to chase it down and eat it. They also work good for flipping into the cover. Those little arms are just going to kick on the way down, and then they flutter back up and down. They work great. And crawfish, especially if you don't have shad in your fishery, craws are probably going to be their primary source of food. That or bluegill. So they're, you know, having a craw in your bag, you're going to catch a lot of fish on them. I also have these, I call them beaver style baits. Now this is like a beaver craw mixture. It's the Z Craw from Zoom. If you've seen a couple of my older videos, you know I love these. This is watermelon seed, very clear type color, which is, I fish this in very clear water, you know, 3 to 5 feet or more visibility. I fish this color or watermelon red. But these ribs on the side here disperse a lot of water. They cause a lot of vibration, and these little kickers down here, same thing as the Guggen. They're a little bit fatter. These things go crazy. I've used it as a trailer for chatterbaits and things. Amazing. I cannot say enough about this. This is probably my favorite plastic out there right now, other than the thing I'm about to show you next. But this thing is incredible. So, and it's a little heavier, so if you're flipping and pitching, it's got just enough action where it's not going to get caught up and snagged up easy like some of your other creature baits might. But this right here is probably my favorite as far as beaver baits. This is the Missile Baits DBomb. This color is called Super Bug. Haven't fished it yet, just picked it up a couple days ago. So the DBomb, it's got these little appendages here and they flap around. And it's got these two here. They don't, I mean, they move a little bit, but they're more for water dispersion. So on the top here, you got like a June bug color, and on the bottom is green pumpkin with black flake. This color it's called Super Bug, is amazing. As far as pitching and flipping, this is my go-to. If I'm just going to pitch and flip a creature bait, the DBomb is by far the best one I have found. Love the Bandito bug, the Rage bug. There's a lot of good ones out there. The Sweet Beaver. This I've found, especially with these ribs for that water dispersion, just it stands above them all. This thing is amazing. You can even crawling this one or swimming it. The action's not that great, but for pitching and flipping, or even as a trailer, jig trailer, these things are incredible. Next couple things we just picked up in the last couple days when we went to Sportsman's Warehouse. This is the Missile Baits Destroyer. Now I've got baby destroyers, but I've never had the big one. These things are wicked looking. So you got the DBomb body, same little ribs there. It's actually a little thicker. You got the appendages here are longer and the tails are very long. These kicker tails. This you could crawl, get a lot of good action out of it. You could probably swim this with those legs. There's really not much you can't do with this. Now this is candy grass. So you got like a purple with a bunch of different flake in there and then a green. My wife liked this color. She really likes the pretty colors. Candy grass I've heard, or sprayed grass sometimes. I've always been told it works really well, especially in darker water. We're going to definitely give these a try, see how they work. And the baby destroyers I've got work great, especially on a Ned Rig. I'm actually excited for these. Kind of look like something you'd see out of the movie Alien. These I'm super excited to try though. I can't wait to get them in the water. So that'll probably be something we do this weekend actually.
Maybe I'll catch my second bass on that.
Yes, and for everybody out there, she did catch her first bass on a lure about 2 weeks ago. We went up to Carter's Lake. We went to do some night fishing. She had a 10.5 inch green pumpkin worm on there, just crawling it up the rocks. Caught her first bass, about a 1 pounder. But I'm very proud of her. She's come a long way, and she's getting better and better and better. So that's a cool story. These, I've been looking for these. I have not got to fish them yet. I have not been able to find them anywhere. These are the Googan Baits Hedgehogs. Heard nothing but good stuff about them. These are green pumpkin, and they just look wicked. They got a very worm style body, and they've got those ribs on them for water disbursement. It's pretty stretchy. It's pretty durable. So you got all these appendages here. And here's the cool thing about these. Even the small appendages have those little fat arms on them to just push a lot more water. This is something I'm probably going to start out maybe crawling, or I'm not sure if they made that look that way on purpose, but I see what you guys did there. That's a pretty slick little joke. So I see what you did. But so I'm really excited to throw this thing. I've heard nothing but good reviews about these trench hogs. But creature baits, beaver baits, this time of year, I will throw a worm. I have started downgrading. As much as I love them, the big 10.5, 12-inch bull worms and old monsters and all, they're going away for the rest of the year. downsizing a little bit, getting more action, more finesse. I hate to see them go, but it's that time. But these right here are about the biggest baits I'll throw this year at this time. So the next thing we're going to talk about is a shaky head. Now, let me find my shaky heads. They're in here. This is a shaky head. Well, that's not, but this is. So this is a shaky head. These have a screw lock in them. It's a rounded jig head. So what this does is it's designed to set up like that right there in the water. So, and what I usually throw on it is a finesse worm, trick worm type thing. These yums are great. I haven't even opened the shit, I don't think. But, nope, I haven't. Crack it open. These are great. So, what this does, it's a very finessey setup. You've got your trick worm here, which obviously it's got a big fat tail there. It's gonna, you know, sitting in the water, it's gonna jerk, it's gonna wiggle all around like this and have a lot of action. So you put your head in the screw lock, and you want to bring the rest of it back just to where the tip of that hook is coming through. You don't want to go all the way through, just the tip of the hook. So essentially, your bait's going to look like this. And when it's sitting on the bottom, you're just going to lightly shake it, and this thing's going to dance. It's just basically like a giant sized Ned Rig. In a lot of ways is a good way I look at it. That's how I fish it, and that's how I get success with it. Now you can fish a ribbon tail, which I have done with these, but I find that a finesse worm, trick worm, of those kinds, they just work the best. I have heard of people using flukes with it. So, but the shaky head, when the bite's a little tough, you need to slow down. Maybe they're not moving around as much, they're not chasing. You need to go finesse. That's really my go-to. The Ned Rig is a cheat code, but my go-to is that I find I catch bigger fish on the shaky head. I catch more fish on a Ned, but I catch bigger fish on the shaky head. And the last thing we're going to talk about here is going to be the Dropshot. So basically, you know, you get your line out, and what I usually use these are a size 1 octopus hook. I'll usually have about an 18 to 24 inch leader depending on the line that I'm using. And you gotta make sure the knot that you're using when you tie it, your hook needs to be pointing up this way. If it's pointing down on your line, it's not gonna work. It has to be pointing up. I will make a video soon about the Dropshot, about how to tie this properly to make sure. So, and then this is a Dropshot weight. Slide your line in there, push it up through, it just hangs on there at the end of it. So what this is going to do, Dropshot weight's going to be on the bottom, your lure's going to be up here just kind of dancing around, and as you shake and manipulate it, it's just going to dance around above the water column. So if you're fishing like a grass bed, and you can basically get your Dropshot to where your lures will be just at the top of that grass line. So those fish will see it better, they'll come up, they'll eat it, they're, you know, something swimming there. They're gonna come up and investigate. The way you rig a Dropshot, really, let me get one of these back out, I should have left it out. Okay. So what you're gonna do with the Dropshot, and it's very simple. Let's just take this flute for example. I like using flutes on a Dropshot. These are just Zoom flutes. Green Pumpkin Magic, just green pumpkin with a ton of different sparkle flakes in there. So what you do is, you can do this one of two ways. You can just come right into the head here and hook it right through like that. And then that's just gonna flop around all kinds of crazy back there. Or the way I usually prefer doing it is to come in a little bit below and go up through the head, just like that. Just the tip of that hook is exposed, and you get a little bit more of the bait on there, and I personally think it just has a little bit better action. I don't know it probably really doesn't matter action-wise. I just prefer doing it this way. It's what I've had better results on. So you just, and what it's going to do is this is just going to dance around freely. And as I talked about in the other video, you want those erratic movements. So you want it to look natural, but naturally erratic. A fluke is a great thing to throw. I also have these little trick shots from ZMan. I just got, now this color is Meat Dog. It's like a tequila sunrise purple on the bottom and like a green pumpkin on the top. And these are those Elastec, so these things, you know, they're durable. But you put that on there, it's just gonna flip-flop around and shake around. It's got those ribs for some water disbursement. You're gonna have a lot of crazy action with stuff like that. And that's really what you want. And you just gotta, you know, play with the profile. One day they may want something smaller. One day they may want something, you know, the size of a trick worm. I have thrown trick worms on drop shots and had great success with them. So you just have to look around at your fishery. And then these bomb shots for missile baits. This is a watermelon red. You know, it's just a little small bait. It's got those ribs on it like most all missile baits do for the water dispersion. It's got a little paddle tail. Throw that on there. It's very lightweight. It's very flimsy. It's just gonna flop all over the place in the water, create a lot of commotion. Now, the times I fish these, like I said, I'm always usually gonna start out with a Texas rig. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, Carolina rig, Carolina rig." You know what? A Carolina rig can work this time of year. But I find the Carolina rig shines more in the wintertime when the bass are lethargic. They're just sitting on the bottom. You got to crawl a bait right in front of them. The great thing about those four rigs, the Ned, the Texas, the Dropshot, and the Shaky Head, you can fish them different ways. You can fish them faster. You can fish them erratic. You can dead stick them. Whatever you need to do, you can do it with all four of those. And they're so versatile. The Dropshot gives you that, you know, that height in the water to where you've got your weight on the bottom, your bait's floating above. Sometimes you can get above a grass line. You've got the Texas rig, which is versatile. You can do anything with it. You've got your Ned rig, which, like I say, is a cheat code. You just throw it out there, lightweight. And the thing, remember, with a Ned rig, you want to fish light tackle. The weight's light, the baits are light, they're small. Throwing it on this 18 pound, 17 pound test that you might throw, like I throw my Texas rig on 17 pound mono. Well, now I'm using fluorocarbon. I switched to fluorocarbon for those, but 15 pound fluorocarbon, not going to be a good idea with a bait caster to throw a Ned rig like that. You're going to get a lot of backlashes. It's going to be hard to cast. It's going to be hard to control. I'll switch to my spin gear, 6, 7, 8, 10 at the most test. I believe I'm using 8 on mine. So, yeah, it's 8. So, 8 pound mono, which is just because that's what's spooled on it when I bought it. I haven't unspooled it and respooled it yet, but I like using a shorter rod. A lot of people say use a longer rod. My personal preference is a shorter rod for drop shot and Ned and things like that. I use the longer 7 foot or more for the Texas rig and things a lot of times just to have a little bit. I find better flipping action with a longer rod. I find better accuracy with a shorter rod. Usually medium heavy, fast action is what I like to go with. You know, there may be some of you guys out there that know a lot more than I do that are going to kill me for those things. That's just what I personally have found comfort in. And as I'm going through this journey, I'm probably going to figure out that some of those need to be adjusted. But the Ned, it's just a cheat code. Like I said, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I could take my 2.5-year-old daughter out there with a little Barbie rod, throw a Ned rig on it, and just let her dead stick it, and she'll catch a fish. It's just that, it's ridiculous how easy it is to catch a fish on a Ned. Now, don't hate me if you go out and cast a Ned and don't catch anything, but I've been skunked on it before. But usually, if I can't get anything on the hard baits, I switch to the Texas. They're not biting. I go to a shaky head or a drop shot, and nothing's biting. I go down to a small profile Ned Rig. I'll usually catch a fish. It's just a matter of cadences and profiles, but I hope there's some tips in here that gave you some help you catch more fish this fall transition. I will be going more in depth on drop shot and things in the future in the next few weeks. I got some other videos planned first that correlate more to bait selection and all, and then I will get into the rigging a little more. But have a lot of fun out there this time of year. This time of year you can really catch a lot of fish in that fall transition, and it's not that hard to do once you figure out what your comfort zone is and get some confidence in a couple things. Always like and subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you know when I post new videos. Turn some people onto this channel. I really want to get the name out there. I really want to grow and help some people. Also, drop comments. I mean, if I'm missing something, if you see something I should be doing, I'd love to hear, because I want to catch more fish. I want to catch bigger fish. I want to catch my personal best sometime this year before the year ends. And we're going into personal best season in winter, so be ready for that. That's when the huge fish comes in winter time. But stay positive out there. Have a lot of fun fishing, and I will talk to you all soon. Have a great night.